All right, Madam Chair, we'll begin in 3, 2, 1.
Okay, I will call the meeting to order. First, I will read the land acknowledgement statement. On November 7th, 2023, we acknowledge that this sacred land on which Smiths Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We are also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smiths Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. First item of business is the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda before we do that? Yes, Mary?
Yes, sorry, Dorothy. We have a letter from Mary Ann Gibson I would like to have added as a correspondence item, and we've included it in the agenda package that I have up there for the committee.
Okay, so there is a correspondence item then.
I didn't hear what she said. Sorry, I find the fan behind me hard to couldn't hear what she
The
said.
letter from Mary Ann is being included as a correspondence
Thank you.
item.
Thank you.
Any other additions to the agenda?
I just have a few additional things to talk about in regards to the symposium, but I can do it all in that time if that's okay. I gave handouts, so I'll just speak to them.
Okay,
If that's okay.
yeah, that's all. I think that's the first priority
Yeah.
issue. All right then, would someone move that we approve the agenda? Class, and a seconder? Jenny, thank you. All in favor? Adoption of the minutes of the last meeting, which was on October the 3rd. Would someone move that we adopt those minutes? Jenny, thank you. And a seconder? Class?
Sure.
All in favor of adopting the minutes of the last meeting? Okay, thank you. Passed. Disclosure of monetary interest? None. Okay. Number 5, correspondence items.
There it is.
Oh, hi, Chris. Sorry. I'll give you a minute to, let's make sure Chris
Chris,
has a
did you get
package of
the
it.
handouts? Are they there?
Yes,
Extras. Oh, Jenny, do you have extras down there? Yeah. Thank you. Can you give me this? Thanks.
He's got the whole lot now. Okay, the correspondence item is a letter of resignation from the committee by Mary Ann Gibson. And you all have a copy of that. So we'll move on to priority issues. The first one is the debrief of the Heritage Symposium. So I'll hand this over to you, Lorraine.
Thank you. I gave you 2 handouts. The first one were the expenses that we incurred. And unlike any other Heritage Symposium, the biggest cost that we've had in the future is getting speakers and having them stay for the length of time they stay and that sort of thing. We didn't have any of that. So in all honesty, this is the cheapest symposium we've ever had. And I think it was very successful. The feedback I got from people attending was the fact that many of them hadn't been at the Railway Museum, had only been at Station Theatre maybe once, and was really happy to be there. And we had kind of agonized over the getting there, but it was smooth, very, very smooth. The lunch was really well done, and yeah, the day was very good, I think. So I just gave you the expenses because Mary needed the itemized herself, but I thought you'd be interested just in how cheap it really was. The two museums, I think both of them got back to me saying that it was great to have that many people there. And many of the people had said that they'd never been before, which was really kind of nice. Now, the only question I have for staff is, we were hoping at the Station Theatre, they filmed it, and it was to be put on the town website, and I don't see it being done yet. So I just wondered what the status is.
Mary, can you?
Yep, so this month, November, is my month to be working with Dorothy on the Heritage Blast post that will ultimately be incorporated into a Heritage webpage that will go on the town's website, and it'll include aspects such as the Heritage Register and then any other heritage initiatives that this group is doing. So that recording will have to be downloaded at that time, and at this point I'm actually needing to work with IT to extract the recordings from the memory disk that they gave me, because I don't have the function in my laptop to be able to do it. So it'll take some time, but it'll be the new year, and all of that will be posted online.
I thought from other years when we've done it is that what they give us right from the Station Theatre can be put right on our website.
Yes, that's what I'm referring to. So at present time, there isn't a proper location to put the recordings, so it'll go onto a new Heritage webpage in the new year.
And the other hand, it was just, I thought it would be interesting to everyone to see the number of, the titles of the number of symposiums we've had. And at the bottom, I just mentioned that we need more planning, and we need staff. We need some staff on the committee to help. We were burnt out. The four of us really were. But the other thing is, I think it was very successful, and I think that it takes time to be prepared and have everything ready. And one of the things that we talked about that we haven't done yet is helping people in Smiths Falls know how to designate their own building, like their house, their home. We haven't talked at all about that. Residential areas, and conservation district coming, I believe, Chris, am I right? And that's good. You've hired someone to do a report, the council has? That's what it was said last night.
It's just an RFP, I think, is out.
Oh, okay, you're in the process, sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's great news, because that would be a good kind of sister thing to do, because if people are excited about it. I find when I talk to people in my neighborhood, and my neighborhood has a lot of beautiful old houses in it, they think there's a big thing about it, like you might, it might bring your property value down, or you wouldn't be able to sell, or it's got all these negative connotations, none of which are true. In fact, it's just the opposite. But I think that's where we have to do some education to that degree about.
So you're thinking for a future symposium?
Yeah, it's just an idea.
Yeah.
And when we see what comes back from what the Smiths Falls Council comes up with for conservation district, it'll be interesting to see if we can maybe pair up and do something similar or that would support that.
Mm-hmm. Well, we probably should begin working on it at the beginning of the new year. Mm-hmm. As you say, there wasn't enough time.
No.
Yeah. So, yes, and we have a slightly smaller committee. Maybe all of us should participate in the planning, as opposed to
I think that'd be great if people were willing. And I wonder if maybe we could just have like a section of every one of our meetings, like, sometimes some of the committees have just 10 minutes or 15 minutes for something. Maybe we could just have that planned into the day.
That's a good
idea. That way we could talk about it.
That we discuss it at each meeting.
Yeah, yes. that would be really helpful for sure.
I think that's a great idea. So thank you very much for this, Lorraine. This really helps, seeing what we've done in the past.
I know. It's
Glass has a question.
Yeah, no, I just want to make a comment. I enjoyed it. I'd never been to one before, and I had no idea what it was going to be like. And I wish I could have spent a bit more time on that. What I found very interesting was the young girl, and I forgot her name, from Carlton Place, the presentation she made on Briar Hill subdivision.
Nikki Dwyer.
Nikki Dwyer, yes, on that Briar Hill. I thought that was very interesting because it brought in perspective that heritage doesn't have to be something that's 200 or 300 years old. It could be something that was just recent, and that's what she was talking about. No, it was great. It was really, really good. Oh, the other thing too, this is personal. I got to see the machine that I drove at Hershey's for years.
Oh, in the presentation?
No, sitting out front on the tracks, that big green machine there
Oh, at the Railway Museum?
at the Railway Museum.
Oh, is that right?
I came from Hershey's, and I drove that thing for years, moving the boxcars around.
Really?
Yeah. So
I'm not sure we knew that came from Hershey's.
Yep, says right on there.
Does it?
Says right on. It came from Hershey's.
Well,
That's all. It just kind of
maybe
blew
I'm
me
the only
away
one that
there.
doesn't know.
Anyway, that was a long time ago. Sorry.
Oh, that's great.
That was cute. Anyway, yeah, I enjoyed it. It was good.
Okay, next priority issue is the heritage education events and initiatives. And I see we're going to talk about Heritage Week, February 19th to 25th next year. So, who put this on the agenda? Wasn't me.
That wasn't me. I don't know.
Mary, did you put that on the agenda?
I did.
Okay.
And sorry, anyways, the new calendar for next year is currently in the approval process, and it stuck out to me. It is November, so I figured that it would be a good time to start discussing it. Just give us a few months if we have any initiatives that require extra work. That way we have some time to execute it. I'm trying to stick to our work plan.
Right.
Have we had this event? This is something that happens every year.
So every February, there is a National Heritage Week that's celebrated about the third week of February every year. And just as a group, we try to do even just the smallest initiative. In the past, we've done a coloring contest. We also did heritage social media posts, which highlighted different heritage properties within the community every day throughout the week, and one new social media post would come up each day, which the community really seemed to enjoy. Sometimes it's a little bit more grand what we do, and sometimes it's a little bit more on the down low, but generally speaking, this group generally tries to celebrate that Heritage Week in some form. So I thought it was a good time to think about it.
We had the photograph contest as well.
Yeah.
Can you identify this?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's right, the scavenger hunt.
Yes.
And walking tours. We often do our walking tours
That's
at
right.
that time for that reason.
February?
Well,
Oh,
that's
not
when
sure.
Heritage Week is.
Whenever Heritage Week is.
Wear winter clothes.
Yeah.
So does anyone have any suggestions right now, or should we just, be thinking about
I
this?
wonder
for
if
the
we
next
could just try and find some ideas from other, because I find that that's the hardest thing. We haven't really thought very much about it. Maybe if we just get, Google some other areas that do one different ways, that would give us some ideas, because I have no idea how to do it better.
No, the tour is the only thing.
Okay, well, we'll put that on the agenda again next month then, and
Sure.
I think Councilor McGuire had his hand up. Sorry.
I was gonna say, maybe we could get a delegation to council or the cow meeting that week that could talk about some topic of interest or something relevant to maybe conservation districts or rehabilitations or whatever the hot topic of the.
yeah, that's a great
From now
suggestion.
is.
Yeah, for sure. It's not always the public we need to educate, in other words. Okay, so we'll talk about that in more detail next month. Next item is committee membership. We will need to recruit again, and I guess this is a suggestion that we have a student participant.
I think Carl wants me to speak to it, but do you want to?
Yeah, I can just say a few words, and Mary can fill me in as well, as she's been working with the clerk. But one of the things that's been sort of discussed around the table for all of our committees is how we can encourage young people, youth, high school students to get involved, as I think the decisions and the discussions around around all of our committees would impact them over the long term. So we have received some legal advice, and there is some distinction in legislation between a committee that actually makes that fulfills a statutory role, such as the Municipal Heritage Committee, versus a committee that's strictly advisory, that does not form a statutory role. But either way, I think we recognize from our perspective that there is the ability and the opportunity to encourage young people to participate. So staff would like to float the idea with the Municipal Heritage Committee of creating space for 16 and 17-year-olds on this committee, either as voting or non-voting members. We'll work out those logistics, but we would. But if the committee is interested, we can explore some amendments to our terms of reference to include youth members, and if that's approved by council for this committee or any of the other committees, we can look at doing some recruiting in school and engaging a whole engaging that demographic.
Is council looking at having student representatives?
Council, well, staff put out a call for student representatives. Personally, my take is that talking to some of the stronger ones that we've had over my 5 years, that the feeling I got from the student counselors were that they had to read a lot of reports, they had to do a lot of work, but it was essentially an unpaid internship without any vote. And I thought in my head, if we could get them on a committee like this where they could have a vote and actually be a full member, I think that could be a much more meaningful experience for them than shadowing the council meetings where because it's a ton of, they're expected to read 5-6 hours of reports some week and then sit through 5-6 hours of meetings, and it's like, so I think something like this, and they could really help us. We need more people, and with some enthusiastic young people, it could really help. So
Yes.
Would this qualify for these students to have the community service hours?
I don't think so. Because they're supposed to have so many a week, aren't they? And
40 hours for
Well,
the duration of their
It's not a
term.
week. Mary?
I have asked that question. That's something that needs to be facilitated with the school, but between myself and the clerk, we can't imagine why it wouldn't qualify for community service hours, and they do need 40. Something that needs to be kept in mind, though, is just the rollover that might come with student participation. So we might be seeing a new student member every year, and because we'd only be able to accept 16, 17, 18 is considered adults, so 16 and 17. So there's that chance of rollover on an annually or biannually basis. So we'll be seeing a larger turnover with youth participants than we do adult participants. So I just want to keep that in mind, but I don't see any reason why it couldn't qualify for volunteer hours to go towards their diploma.
Yeah, because my granddaughter is a little different. She's doing her community hours at the library in Carlton Place, okay, and assisting with kids coming in for playtime, or what I call it, whatever, okay. But she's only doing so many hours now, and then so many hours the next year, and so many hours the next year. It's out throughout the 4 years of high school, or 3 years, whatever they do. So that student could continue on through the whole term of their education time, from grade 10 through to whatever, with us, if that could work.
Carl?
Another example with respect to the hours, perhaps if this student is interested in assisting with the symposium planning or something like that could qualify. So somebody who's appointed by council would also mean that they would be covered by the town's code of conduct, insurance, all of that, to make sure that they're protected accordingly.
And they would be.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's just a thought. I mean, it would give them something something for them to be interested in the Heritage Committee. Teenage years, I'm not so sure, maybe. But if they can be towards community hours, then they're getting something in return. We're getting something from that, and they're getting something in return. That's their hours.
Well, I think it's a worthwhile thing that we should be pursuing myself. Carl?
Yes, thank you. And I guess we're looking for committee's direction, but we can come back at the next meeting with the drafted, with some some updates to the terms of reference that we can run by this committee and then take to council for approval. But I think just from a staff perspective, from what we're the discussion around the management table is we'd love to give provide some skin in the game for more people and more opportunity for folks to be involved, to see that there's relevance to what we do as a municipality to their interests. And I think are we going to have hundreds of kids knocking on the door to join MHC? Perhaps not, but I think there's a high likelihood that there's going to be a few who are very passionate or interested in it and may not necessarily have viewed this as a place for them. And through something like this can be identified as a place for them and give that opportunity to sort of explore the municipal world in a different way. Like recently, a couple of weeks ago was local government week, and council held a meeting at the high school. There's a career fair at the high school, and part of our exercise there was to present local government as a viable option, career-wise and interest-wise to high school students. And I think there was a fair bit of uptake and interest in that. So I think it sounds like we have our direction for next meeting, Madam Chair. Am I reading the room correctly?
Sounds good to me.
Yep. Yes. All nodding our heads. Okay, very good.
Thank you.
How would you see us doing the recruiting?
So that's a conversation we'd have with the clerk's office. I think at least the three committees that are under the jurisdiction of development services, we're having these discussions with each of these committees and getting the buy-in from the committee as to whether they'd like to explore with that. So I think each committee is having their own conversation, their own terms of reference being brought forward in time with council. So I don't have an answer to that question just yet, Dorothy. That's something that we'll work on internally, whether we're going to be looking at doing a broader promotion blast at the high school, or if every committee is just going to be doing its own thing to try to recruit.
Thank you.
So Lorraine, you had?
I was just going to say, I don't know, I've been out of education for a number of years, but there used to be a high school course called civics, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And it really talked about governments and advocacy for different things. So, and it seems to me that a number of our students in the past that we've had came from that class because the teacher, do you remember, Chris, the teacher that used to come?
Yeah, I think those classes, we had a council meeting or a committee of the whole meeting at the high school 2 weeks ago. And I think it was the grade 10 classes. Anyway, there were specific classes there that were in that course, and whatever, I think it's grade 10, but whatever year it was.
Yeah, there was a teacher that used to recommend like students, and I can't remember his name, but
It was a half course. There were 2 half courses over the semester. Careers, maybe, in civics, or
yeah, I don't know.
yeah.
And I can't think of the name of the lady, the teacher that organized it. I know there's somebody Carrie was working with, but anyway, there was 2 or 3 events done with the high school for that municipal government week, so there's a good relationship of
Okay, good. So, project updates, are we ready for that item now? The request for a proposal for the downtown area heritage conservation district study.
So just a very quick update to the committee on that. We have posted the request for proposal. We've received about the bids and tenders portal has indicated, I think about 9 or 10 different companies have at least have engaged with the proposal. It doesn't mean we're going to get 9 or 10 proposals for the project, but certainly a number of big names who I would expect to be seeing there. So just in terms of the deadlines, there was last Wednesday was the deadline for prospective bidders to send questions or clarifications. We've received 2 submissions from prospective bidders with questions and clarifications on the proposals. So staff will be issuing an addendum to the proposal, just clarifying largely administrative pieces within. That information will help interested bidders frame their proposal and make sure that they're sending us something that that we need. The deadline for submissions for proposals is next Wednesday. So following that, staff as well as Jenny on behalf of the Municipal Heritage Committee, and thank you, Jenny, for agreeing to sit in as the MHC rep on our steering committee. We'll convene, review the proposals that have come in, and once we've settled on a high scoring bidder, then we will take that recommendation to council later this year.
Did council give them a type of conservation district, or was it wide open? And you'll have different kinds of conservation districts being offered.
So this is for the study. So they're going to study the downtown, a study based on the downtown core, and part of that study is going to have to determine the boundary. And
so they're looking at the whole conservation area being one district. Is that right?
Yeah, the results of the study, I think, inform the boundaries of this iteration of conservation district. So, Carl.
Yep. So that's Chris is correct. The municipal the Ontario Heritage Act outlines a number of criteria that need to be satisfied in order for an area to be eligible for designation, and that includes a certain density of or certain concentration of properties that meet the criteria that are set out in the legislation. So the study will be assessing that. So we've identified the downtown core area as our potential study area, but the consultant's going to be recommending specific boundaries. And there's a number of different policy approaches that doesn't necessarily, like as an example, and I'm not saying this is going to come out this way, but let's say the study reveals two very distinct character areas within our downtown area. Perhaps we create subzones, perhaps we create two separate designation or conservation districts. So the act does not limit the municipality to a single conservation district. So those are the sorts of things that will get revealed as the project is underway.
And were they given the one we already have, like to look at? The one that we've had like 7 or 8 years ago that
So-
we've just not acted on? The conservation district, oh, sorry, go ahead.
We did not provide that information with the request for proposal. The request for proposal was simply outlining what it is that we need. But typically when we're working with a bidder, we provide a whole range of background information, including documents that were already provided beforehand and work
You
that was
think that would
already
be
done.
useful to them? wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions, Chris?
Question for discussion kind of with the group.
Can you speak a little louder? I find this room very hard to hear, and I know I'm old.
Yeah, the
Are you
speakers.
Barely pick 'em up too.
I can't hear Mary at all.
I guess in the last time we did something like this with an RFP was the bylaw rewrites, and in the context of the library renovations, I think there's definitely things we missed on that in hindsight, obviously it's obvious, but at the time I didn't notice it. I'm wondering, when we're vetting these proposals, what are lessons learned we can take from the last time we did this into this time, just so that we get somebody who's going to really give us a high quality product at the end of the day? Because I think it's so easy to have these loopholes slipped in, and then it's a subjective thing to begin with. And I'm just kind of putting this out there for open discussion. I don't have a good answer, or I'd be sharing it, but or maybe it's just something to think about tonight if nobody else has any comments. But for me, that's kind of the thing in the back of my mind of it's great to hear we've got interest, but
It's a really good point though you're making though, because the one that we've had in the past, we were very excited at the time. I was very excited. I thought, finally, we're going to deal with the conservation district. That's so much better than, area by area. And that's really, then it just didn't go anywhere. And so it would be a shame to do that again. Hopefully this time they're going to act on what they end up finding.
Well, I wonder, it's one of those situations where lowest price isn't always the best value. And
Many times.
yeah, so I guess if there's opportunities to review other examples of work that have been completed by the actual people, is it the kind of proposal where they're going to submit, okay, this person's doing this part of the job, so we could find other reports that these people have been responsible for maybe and look at it, or I don't know.
There must be an overriding manager though of all of them, wouldn't there be?
So,
Go ahead.
yeah, so each proposal, typically when we receive a proposal, it's very detailed. It outlines the methodology. It has a whole list of the resumes of the people who are going to be involved, explains what's going to be, what each of their roles are, and if that information isn't there, then that's a red flag. But typically, as part of the proposal, there is also just a summary of work that they've already done. So if they've done heritage conservation districts elsewhere, then those are listed and they provide references. So certainly we can follow up with the municipality to confirm if they're happy with the work, if it was done right. Further to Chris's comment, we have a scoring matrix of 100 points. The cost is 30 of the points, so certainly it matters. It doesn't mean, and staff have brought forward proposals in the past with a recommendation to not go with the low bidder if there's a slightly higher bidder that has a higher level of effort or otherwise covers what the municipality is looking for better. So certainly if we're recommending something that's not the low bidder, then we have to make that justification to council who sets the budget. But that's not the only criteria we look for in finding the right fit for the municipality. And in other projects I've been working on, we'll have follow-up interviews, and we've done this a few times. If we have a couple of bidders who we feel are very strong, or there's certain points of clarification, then the steering committee will meet with those folks, and we can ask those questions, follow up on certain points to help us make the best decision as to who we feel the right fit is for the municipality. So that's deciding who we want to carry forward on the project. We enter into the contract once council makes the award, but there will of course be touch points for the Municipal Heritage Committee throughout the project as a whole to make sure that this is indeed addressing what the interests of the town in defining the Heritage Conservation District and what goes into it. Because as we've mentioned earlier, it's a two-step process. The first step is the study area that frames the scope of a heritage conservation district. It provides a professional opinion as to whether or not what our geographic boundaries should be, whether or not this meets the criteria set forward in the Act. And then from there, council makes the next decision as to whether to proceed with the plan and guidelines. And that's where that's the more regulatory aspect that gets developed and would be the final deliverable. So it is a two-phase project, and our hope, of course, as a single consultant does both phases.
Will the committee as a whole, our committee as a whole, have any opportunity to see the proposal, or is that going to be the sole responsibility of the steering committee?
From our perspective, there's certain commercial and confidentiality that's inherent with these sorts of proposals. So it's not usual, at least at this stage, when a proposal is received, that it be viewed as a whole and in a public setting.
Right.
So our expectation would be that the steering committee, including the MHC representative on the steering committee, would have the opportunity to review, and we would be making that recommendation. But it's not usual that sort of these items are debated in a public setting.
Of course. Okay, any more questions or comments for Carl?
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned, right. Well, that brings the formal agenda to a close then.
Can I ask a question just before we leave?
Yes.
I watched the council meeting last night with great interest. And in that meeting, it was referred to that the Municipal Heritage Committee had given the okay to the library edition. And in my opinion, and in my memory, at no time were we consulted, and at no time did we give any opinion.
No, that it is not the case that we gave approval for the actual addition. We were asked to give our approval to 3 specific changes to interior heritage attributes. And I don't have it in front of me now, but there were 3 of them. One of them was the radiator, where they were going to take it off and paint it and put it back. Another one was baseboard or molding, something like that.
Yeah.
And there were 3 of them, and they were all on the interior. And we also had a heritage impact assessment provided, and the heritage impact assessment concluded that only those 3 features named in the bylaw were relevant for approval by the Heritage Committee. We were never asked to approve or disapprove of the actual change to the outside of the building. We were not.
No, but I guess my point that I'm making right now is that, and this is Mary's point why she left, they're setting, like, when you take a wall out of a building that especially is so historic as our library, it's the very prettiest one. I've gone across Canada, saw them all. If you take a wall out, I can't imagine why anyone in their right mind would think taking that wall out hasn't changed significantly the building. It has. And so, in my opinion, as a Municipal Heritage Council member that's worked really hard, we should be able to have an opinion that that wasn't the right thing to do.
Right, but it wasn't included in the bylaw that had been rewritten. The point I'm trying to make is that if the statement is made that the Heritage Committee agreed with it all, well, that's not it. That's not correct.
No, and that's all I'm trying to say today, and for the camera is, we did not have a discussion where we all said, "Yay, yeah, that's great."
No, we did not. Chris?
Yeah, and I was frustrated when that came up last night, and I was pretty clear that that was not the case, because it is a fabrication, and I think it gives this impression that the committee's endorsed something that we haven't endorsed.
It very much did give that impression.
The more I think about this, and maybe it's just because it's still fresh in my mind from last night, the more I see this situation as one where, in my interpretation of the original, like the bylaw that was updated, the massing and the symmetry of the building would account for something like this kind of a renovation where the building envelope significantly changed. Unfortunately, the Heritage Impact Statement or whatever report was provided, is it a Heritage Impact Statement, Carl?
Yes.
Determined that the massing, like just based on that picture, you can see how the massing of the whole side of that building changes, which could have easily been modified with a gabled roof, or there's lots of design options that could have met with it, but those conversations never happened. And the justification for that was that, 5, 6, 7 years ago, the committee got a copy of this, and there was never any dialogue. So then we went ahead with it and built it. But for the library board to go ahead with a renovation like this with no public consultation is odd, I think, to spend $1.4 million without public consultation. Anyway, all this is outside of our scope. I think for our scope, a loophole's been identified. I think something needs to change to make sure this doesn't happen again. So I would suggest that at the next Heritage meeting in December, if we're having one December or January, we take a look at that impact statement, because we only received that impact statement with less than 24 hours notice before our meeting, because we were rushing this meeting through trying to be helpful. And I feel like in our effort to be helpful and to not be an impediment to the project, we sold ourselves short. And I think I appreciate how as a committee we've always tried to give the benefit of the doubt. But now after this situation, I think what we're doing here is really important. And I think sometimes we do need to push back. And I didn't, I'm not pointing, you know what I mean? It is what it is. And I think at the time, there was a lot of goodwill towards the project. But the way this has moved forward, it did not, we should have had a good discussion on changing the building envelope. And nobody ever had that discussion in town. So I'd like to take a look at the Heritage Impact Statement. I'd like to discuss it. I'd like to take a look at the bylaw and just have a robust conversation and then maybe look at the other bylaws and try to see how is that massing and symmetry going to be interpreted? Because there's nothing symmetrical about a cube sticking out of the side of
Like the only reason I brought it up tonight in a public meeting of this sort, especially because it was us that they talked about supporting it, that was just wrong. We did not support that specific thing. As Dorothy pointed out, we were asked for specific things, items, and we commented on them.
Right.
But we did, at no time did we say it was okay to take out a wall and change dramatically at Carnegie Library in our town.
That is correct. Carl, you were first, I believe.
Oh, I was just going to confirm what Dorothy had stated, that the committee was asked to review 3 specific items, and that was part of that. I think there were some broader conversations around the council table and certainly around this table about what consultations could or should have happened beyond the scope of the Municipal Heritage Committee, and certainly that's for the library board and council to define. But that was, as Chris mentioned, that's a separate. The consultations over the last number of years in terms of the design, that's a separate matter there. But yes, as you'd indicated, that was what the committee had reviewed and passed a motion regarding the 3 items that
That's right.
you'd
We just
mentioned.
wanted to make that clear, that we did not ever approve or even discuss
That's right.
the new design. Class, you wanted to speak?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this whole thing could spin out of control here quite easily. And Chris Cummings brought the proposal information to us. And to me, it was just information. There was no approval of anything at all, you know. But I do ask the question, the library needs to do something desperately. What are they going to do? They need more space. They need to add on somewhere, somehow.
Why do they need more space? If you count the numbers of people that go in that building in a year, I don't think they have evidence.
I think it was the accessibility issue.
There was
Well,
an accessibility, there was for the elevator, but my opinion, the elevator could have been built within the structure that we already have. Anyway, I wasn't bringing this up to have a discussion here. All I wanted to do is publicly inform that this committee, who
Not approved.
studies and takes care of what we consider our heritage properties, did not vote on or support taking the wall out at the public library.
Thank you for bringing that up.
It was just information. That's it.
Well, I guess that was a round table item.
I guess so, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. If you hadn't brought it up, I would have done it myself. So, do we have any other information for roundtable? Chris, do you?
No, yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about. But I'm trying to figure out how do we close these loopholes in the future. I don't know. I don't know how these, like, when the heritage impact statement's written, does that become law, or does that get sent to a committee and the committee gets to give an opinion on, like, what kind of a process is expected when a heritage impact statement's submitted?
Carl?
A heritage impact statement is like any other supporting study that assists a proposal for a planning or a development application. It is a technical review undertaken by a person who is identified as an expert in a particular field. It is not law. It is not a legally binding document in any way. It assists the evaluation of a proposal. Ultimately, it is not an authoritative. We are not bound to accept, just like any other planning or technical study. We are not bound to accept it. If we don't accept it and it gets appealed or challenged or what have you, then obviously we would need to defend that decision one way. But it is, but that is what it is. It is a technical document that was required to support the proposal that was advanced. It was provided from my review of it. I didn't disagree with the technical findings that were in there, and my assessment was based on that.
Okay. Jenny?
I don't have anything.
Class?
Just a bit of information up for discussion. At one point in time, one of these meetings, we discussed about, for us to talk about the heritage designation of the Gallipool Center. We will get to some point. I don't know if most of us are aware the Gallipool Center has been sold. Are you aware of that, Carl?
It's been, there's been discussions about that for quite some time. Proponents have come and gone. I'm not sure where things sit right now with the estate of the owner of that center. So I'm not, I don't have a comment on that. I don't know where that's at.
Well, my sources are quite reliable. I've been told that a large corporation has bought it. It is a done deal. It's gone. So, and it's not anybody local either. Chris, you know anything about it?
No, but I think you bring up a good point where we'd been talked about getting a briefing on how that provincial designation or whatever it is, and I was just wondering to Carl or Mary, where do we expect that in December, January, or what kind of timeline?
We're hopeful to have that for December, but yes, it is on our to-do list as staff. So I don't want to promise, but it is very much in our to-do list, and it's a very fair ask given the context and where we're at. We're not, I'll take your word on the sale clause. Nothing's crossed my desk as definitive, but
I mean,
there's
I
public.
can't necessarily say for
Oh no, I don't expect you to.
No, but it's nobody local. It's a large corporation. It's outside. Now, I think the reason to bring it up, we're going to have to be very cognizant of what we say or our recommendation of the heritage designation because of this new investor. I mean, these people may have totally different ideas than we do.
But when you buy a building that's been designated, my understanding is anyway, you have to honor that designation. You can't just change it.
No, I
It's
realize
provincially designated.
Yeah, it is.
Is it a part of the town?
Yeah,
Yeah.
It is, okay.
it's part of
It's
the
on
town.
annexed.
Okay.
Yeah.
To change the subject to a nicer one, maybe, or a more colorful one, we do have a sign bylaw. I don't know when it was made. I know it was a few years ago. But most of the signs that people are putting up in our downtown are beautiful signs, but they're very modern, ultra modern, if you ask me. And I would really love us as the Municipal Heritage Committee to give another option so that if somebody wants to access money to update their signage and the front of their store, they could do it in a heritage manner. They wouldn't have to use that book of very modern, whatever you call it, signages or reframing. Or, and I'd be happy, like there's several of them. This one is an old one we looked at, the committee looked at many years ago. But it's Iron and Ivy, and it's good. All of them in it are so good. And the council would have to then agree to being able to give the money that they are giving to do the signs to either one. Like if I have Smith's shoes and I want to improve my sign, his sign is the prettiest one downtown right now, but he might want to change it. And if he did, he should be able to access money to update it in a very historic manner, in my opinion.
Go ahead, Carl.
So what I can state is that when we have proposals for, and Mary's working on finalizing an update to the sign bylaw, but when we have proposals for signs, we, especially if it's one that it's something that we may not feel is the best design option, we give that option. There is the community improvement plan where there is funding available for signs that meet the downtown core design guidelines, and council has the, following the recommendation by an evaluation group, council has the final say on that. But there have been a number of instances where we state that if it meets the sign bylaw, we'll issue the sign permit. However, this is a document that you may, our downtown core design guidelines that are also in the process of being updated. But this is a document, or these are best practices that you may want to have a look at, and there may be funding available to assist you on providing a sign with higher quality material or facade.
But if you're telling them there might be, and they're looking just at money to make a sign, they're not going to look at them. They're going to just put the money into the the one that they're getting free. It's just human nature. I mean, it is. It's just human nature.
Chris?
Yeah, I think, Lorraine, you bring up a really good point. I think the new sign bylaw accounts for the downtown core as a different standard as the rest of the town. And I think the two pieces of policy that could really make a change are the Heritage Conservation District and a new sign bylaw. And hopefully in the next year or two, those are.
I agree. Anyway, this is a good one.
Yeah, no, it definitely, I agree that it's definitely a difference.
Yes, right. If it's a heritage conservation district with very modern signs, it doesn't really
It doesn't
fit
fit.
together, does it? Pearl, do you have any additional comments?
And I don't have anything additional. I guess in terms of the Heritage Conservation District, I think the thing I'll remind the committee is that there is a fair bit of leeway the municipality has as to how to regulate. We may not necessarily want to go into colors. We can. We don't have to. But the neat thing about that, and certainly I've seen heritage conservation districts that are 17 pages and others that are 200 pages. So I think there's a fair bit of flexibility for council in how they want to use that to guide and direct change. So there's the ability to become quite prescriptive there, but they don't necessarily have to. So those will be some interesting conversations a little bit further down the pipeline once the study is underway.
Mary, do you have anything for roundtable?
No, but I'll stand up real quick so Lorraine can hopefully hear me better. But yes, I am working on the new sign bylaw. This group saw it a couple years back. There was some consultation that has finally been had. I guess it's also an update for Chris. So we not only met with the Canadian Signage Association last week, we also met with the International Signage Association as well as the Ontario Signage Association last week to help us determine some options for the downtown core, because as Chris said, staff are actively looking at the option to place more, let's call them restrictive provisions for the downtown, because we do recognize that the downtown is a different character than the rest of the town. So we've actively undertaken that consultation, and we're hoping to bring forward the bylaw at the end of the month to council, who will be seeing it for the third time this year, and we're hoping it can be approved so that it's enacted for 2024.
Okay, thank you.
So that it's restrictive in what kind of signs they can use? Is that what you mean? Or
What kind of signs, how many signs, backlit signs. So we, when I say there's also provisions in there regarding a heritage alteration. So for example, the brown limestone on this building is designated a heritage attribute. So if the town, say, wanted to put in a new fascia sign on the side of the building, I would have to flag that as an alteration because it affects the limestone and disturbs the limestone, and that would have to come through the committee. So there's those provisions in there. But with respect to the downtown, it goes into, the idea is that you don't want to deter from the heritage and the architectural features of the building. So you want to reduce the types of signage so that you don't have too much signs on the facade that are deterring from the architectural features, that you're not putting in box signs with fluorescent lighting. So we're actively trying to find a way to regulate signage in a manner that promotes more heritage sympathetic signage in the downtown.
Thank you.
Some of the signs from 50 years ago were really gaudy. You don't want to know some of them.
I do a lot.
Okay, well, I guess that concludes the formal part of the meeting. Next meeting is December 5th at 4:30 p.m. Would someone move that we adjourn? To us? Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Sorry?
The meeting is adjourned.
Who motioned it? Is it possible?
Ross, yes.
Thank you.